Story 1. The Clearing That Wasn't on the Map. The forest looked wrong before we even set up camp. Not dangerous, just wrong. You know that strange feeling when a place looks perfectly normal, but something deep in your brain keeps whispering that it isn't? That's what it felt like standing in that clearing. We had been hiking for hours through miles of dense forest. The trail had disappeared somewhere behind us, swallowed by thick undergrowth and towering pines that blocked most of the sunlight. My friend Caleb insisted we keep going. "Relax," he said, pushing branches aside. "There's a clearing ahead, perfect place to camp." He'd found it on some old online forum for hikers, one of those obscure camping spots no one really talks about. Apparently, it had a lake nearby and a wide open patch of land where people sometimes stayed overnight. But when we reached it, something immediately felt off. The clearing was silent, not the peaceful kind of quiet you expect in the woods, the unnatural kind. No birds, no insects, no wind through the trees, just a stillness so complete it felt like the forest itself was holding its breath. Caleb didn't seem to notice. He dropped his pack to the ground and stretched. "Perfect," he said. I looked around. Tall trees circled the clearing like a wall, their branches twisted together high above us, forming a dark canopy that blocked out most of the sky. In the center sat an old fire pit, not new, not recently used, but definitely man-made. The stones were blackened and cracked with age. Someone had camped here, before, probably lots of people, and yet the ground looked untouched. No footprints, no flattened grass, no sign anyone had stood here in a very long time. "Doesn't this feel weird to you?" I asked. Caleb shrugged. "It's the woods, man. Woods are weird." Maybe he was right. Maybe I was just tired. We pitched the tent near the fire pit and started gathering wood for a small fire. Even as the flames started crackling, the forest stayed quiet. Too quiet. It was the kind of silence that makes every little sound stand out. A snap of a twig, a rustle of leaves, a distant creak of tree branches shifting somewhere deep in the forest. Except those sounds weren't happening. The woods around us remained perfectly still, like something had muted the entire forest. Night fell faster than expected. The canopy above swallowed the last traces of daylight, turning the clearing into a dark island surrounded by black walls of trees. Caleb cooked noodles over the fire while I walked to the edge of the clearing to look around. The forest beyond looked thick, impenetrable. The trees stood so close together their trunks formed a maze of shadows. For a moment, I thought I saw movement between them, something tall slipping between the trunks, but when I focused on it, nothing was there, just darkness. "You good?" Caleb called from the fire. "Yeah," I said. But I wasn't, because I had this growing feeling that the clearing wasn't just surrounded by the forest, it was contained by it, like the trees had grown specifically to trap this patch of land in the middle. We went to sleep not long after, or at least Caleb did. I couldn't. Something about the silence kept me awake. I kept waiting for normal forest sounds to return, an owl, crickets, wind, anything. But the quiet stayed absolute. At some point, I started hearing something else. Footsteps, soft, slow, circling the clearing. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. I froze inside the sleeping bag. The footsteps stopped near the tent, right outside the thin layer of fabric separating us from the darkness. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then something brushed the side of the tent, not hard, just enough to make the fabric ripple slightly. I held my breath. "Caleb," I whispered. No response. He was still asleep. The footsteps started moving again, circling the clearing, always staying just beyond the firelight. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. I waited for Caleb to wake up. He didn't, and eventually the footsteps stopped. Morning came with gray light filtering through the trees. Caleb stretched and yawned like nothing had happened. "You look like garbage," he said. "I heard someone outside the tent last night." He laughed. "Probably a deer." No, it hadn't sounded like an animal. Animals don't walk like that. They don't move in slow, deliberate circles around a campsite. But Caleb didn't take it seriously. We packed up our gear and started heading back toward where we thought the trail was, except we couldn't find it. Not the path, not even the direction we came from. The forest looked different, completely different. Every direction was the same endless wall of trees. We wandered for hours. Eventually, we returned to the clearing, the exact same clearing. Caleb frowned. "That's weird." We tried again. Different direction, different landmarks, same result. By late afternoon, we were back in the clearing again. The same fire pit, the same twisted ring of trees, the same unnatural silence. That's when we noticed something new. Footprints, fresh ones, leading around the clearing. Dozens of them, human, barefoot. Caleb crouched down to examine them. They weren't here this morning. I didn't say anything, because I already knew those were the footsteps I heard during the night, and they circled the clearing again and again and again, like whoever or whatever made them had been walking around our camp for hours. That night, we didn't sleep. We kept the fire burning bright, watched the trees, listened to the silence, and then we heard it again. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. This time, Caleb heard it too. His face slowly lost color as the footsteps began circling the clearing again. But this time, they weren't alone. Another set joined them, then another, then another. 4, 5, 6 different sets of footsteps walking slowly through the darkness just beyond the firelight, all of them moving in a slow circle around us. Caleb whispered, "Why can't we see them?" Because we couldn't. We could hear the footsteps clearly, but the forest beyond the clearing remained empty, like the sounds were coming from things we couldn't see. Then the footsteps stopped, and from somewhere in the darkness, a voice spoke, soft, broken, like someone who hadn't used their voice in years. "Stay." Another voice echoed it from a different direction. "Stay." Then another. "Stay." Caleb grabbed my arm. "We need to leave." But when we stepped toward the trees, every single voice whispered the same word at once. "Stay." The forest went silent again, and then something stepped into the firelight. Bare feet, long legs, pale skin stretched too tight over bones. Its face stayed hidden behind the darkness of the trees, but its head tilted slowly as it watched us, and behind it, more shapes began stepping forward. Dozens of them, all barefoot, all silent, all surrounding the clearing, watching, waiting. And that's when I realized something that still keeps me awake at night. Those weren't footprints circling the clearing. They were paths, paths worn into the dirt from something walking the same circle for years, maybe decades, maybe longer. And somewhere deep in the forest, more footsteps were approaching the clearing, new ones, looking for a place to camp.
Story 2. The Ranger Who Told Us Not to Camp There. The forest road should have ended miles earlier, but it didn't. Our GPS kept insisting we were still on a valid route, even though the asphalt had turned into cracked gravel and then into nothing but 2 faint tire tracks cutting through miles of thick forest. By the time we realized something was wrong, it was already too late to turn back. Darkness had begun slipping between the trees. We were 3 friends on what was supposed to be a quiet weekend camping trip, me, Tyler, and Mason. The kind of trip where you escape the noise of the city and pretend the world is simpler out here. Fresh air, campfire, silence. But the silence in this forest didn't feel natural. It felt heavy, like the woods were full of something we couldn't see. Tyler finally pulled the truck to a stop beside a rusted metal sign leaning against a tree. Most of the paint had peeled away, but we could still make out a few faded words. Forest Service Land, no overnight camping. Mason laughed. That sign looks older than my dad. Tyler shrugged. Probably abandoned land. We were about to keep driving when headlights appeared through the trees ahead. A white Ranger truck rolled slowly down the road toward us. An engine idled as it stopped a few yards away. The door opened. An older man stepped out wearing a faded forest ranger uniform. He looked tired. Not just the kind of tired you get after a long shift, the kind that comes from carrying something heavy for years. His eyes moved slowly across our truck, our camping gear, our backpacks. Then he said something strange. "You boys planning to stay the night out here?" Tyler answered casually, "Yeah, just camping." The ranger didn't respond immediately. Instead, he glanced toward the forest behind us, then toward the road ahead, like he was checking something. Finally, he spoke again. "You shouldn't." Mason chuckled. "Why, bears or something?" The ranger didn't smile. "There aren't any bears here." His voice lowered slightly. "But there are other things." Tyler and Mason exchanged amused looks. Clearly, they thought he was messing with us, but I noticed something else. The ranger's truck was parked sideways across the road, like he had intentionally blocked the path. "You can camp near the lake about 20 miles back," he said, "but not here." Tyler scratched his head. "We already drove too far. Sun's going down." The ranger stared at us for a long moment. Then he sighed. "You won't listen." It wasn't a question. He walked back to his truck and opened the passenger door. Inside was a stack of old missing person flyers. I caught a glimpse of them before he shut the door. Faces, lots of them. Young, old, men, women, all labeled "last seen in this area." The ranger got back behind the wheel, but before closing his door, he looked directly at me. Not Tyler, not Mason, me. And he said quietly, "If you hear footsteps tonight, don't answer them." Then he drove away. His headlights disappeared down the road. The forest went silent again. Mason burst out laughing. "That guy's been watching too many horror movies." Tyler shrugged. "He's probably just trying to scare people away." Maybe, but something about the ranger's warning stuck in my head. We kept driving for another 10 minutes until we reached a small open clearing surrounded by massive pine trees. It looked perfect for camping. Flat ground, a fallen log near the center, and a small stone fire pit. Tyler parked the truck. Home sweet home. We set up camp quickly as the last light faded from the sky. The forest grew darker faster than expected. The tall trees swallowed the remaining daylight until the world became nothing but shadows and firelight. Tyler started telling stories around the campfire. Ghost stories, missing hikers, urban legends, the usual stuff you talk about when you're deep in the woods. But every now and then, I thought about what the ranger said. "If you hear footsteps tonight, don't answer them." Eventually, we crawled into our tents. Tyler and Mason shared one. I took the smaller one by myself. At first, everything felt normal. The fire crackled softly outside. Wind moved gently through the trees. Branches creaked. Typical forest sounds. Then something changed. The wind stopped. The trees stopped moving. The forest felt completely silent. I opened my eyes. Something about the silence felt wrong. Too sudden, too complete. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, heavy, walking around the campsite. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. I sat up inside the sleeping bag. The footsteps circled the fire pit, then moved toward Tyler and Mason's tent. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. I waited for one of them to react, but their tent stayed silent. The footsteps stopped near the entrance. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then someone whispered, "Hello?" It sounded exactly like Tyler, except Tyler was inside the tent, sleeping. The voice spoke again. "Guys?" My heart started pounding because the voice didn't come from the tent. It came from outside, walking around the campsite, calling out to us, using Tyler's voice. "Hey, where did you guys go?" I remembered the ranger's warning, "Don't answer the footsteps." The footsteps kept moving, always just outside the tents, always circling the fire. The voice started getting frustrated. "Why won't you answer?" Then, suddenly, Tyler's tent unzipped. He stepped outside, half asleep. "Dude, did you hear that?" I wanted to scream at him not to answer, but the moment he stepped into the clearing, the footsteps stopped. Complete silence returned. Tyler looked around. "Hello?" No response. Then he turned toward the forest, and I saw something moving between the trees. Tall shapes, standing completely still, watching. Tyler froze. "Guys, who are they?" The shapes began stepping forward, one by one. Their bodies were thin, too thin. Their limbs hung strangely long, and their faces looked wrong, like someone had tried to copy a human face from memory. Tyler slowly backed away, but the shapes kept stepping closer, and then they all spoke at once, using Tyler's voice. "Why didn't you answer?" The sound echoed through the clearing like a broken recording. Tyler ran back toward the tents, but the shapes didn't chase him. They just stood at the edge of the firelight, watching, waiting. Then one of them stepped closer to the fire, its face finally visible, and Tyler whispered something that chilled my blood. "That's me." Because it was. The creature looked exactly like Tyler, same face, same height, same clothes, but its eyes were completely black. And behind it, more shapes stepped forward. Some looked like Mason, some looked like me, and some looked like faces we had never seen before. Dozens of copies, standing silently around the clearing, like they had been waiting there for years, learning, watching, practicing our voices, our movements, our faces. The creature wearing Tyler's face tilted its head. Then it asked quietly, "Which one of us is real?" Behind it, the others began repeating the same question over and over and over. And somewhere deeper in the forest, more footsteps were approaching, looking for new voices to copy.
Story 3. The Trail That Walked With Us. The trail looked normal when we started. That's the part that still bothers me. Nothing about it seemed wrong at first. Just another forest path cutting through miles of towering pine trees. The ground was packed dirt, scattered with dry needles and fallen branches. Sunlight slipped through gaps in the canopy, painting moving patches of gold across the trail. The kind of peaceful place people hike through every day. The kind of place you'd never imagine becoming a nightmare. There were 4 of us that weekend. Me, Jordan, Lucas, and Ryan. We'd been planning the camping trip for weeks. Just 2 days in the woods. No phones, no city noise, just nature. Ryan had found the trail online. Apparently, it was an older route that used to be popular years ago before a new highway rerouted most travelers somewhere else. That meant fewer people, more wilderness. Exactly what we wanted. The parking lot was empty when we arrived. Completely empty. Even though it was the perfect time of year for camping. That should have been the first warning, but at the time, it just felt lucky. We grabbed our packs and started down the trail. For the first hour, everything was normal. Birds moving through the trees, wind whispering through the branches, the sound of our boots crunching softly on the dirt path. Ryan walked in front, checking the map occasionally. According to him, there was a small clearing about 5 miles in where we could set up camp for the night. A quiet spot near an old stream. Perfect place for a campfire. And the deeper we walked into the forest, the quieter things became. At first, It was subtle. The birds stopped singing. Then the wind slowed. Then the forest grew so quiet that every footstep echoed strangely through the trees. Jordan noticed it first. "You guys hear that?" "Hear what?" Lucas asked. "Exactly," Jordan said. He was right. The forest had gone silent. The kind of silence that presses against your ears, like the woods were listening. Ryan laughed it off. "Animals probably hiding from us." Maybe that was true, but something about the quiet didn't feel natural. Still, we kept walking. Eventually, the trail opened into a clearing surrounded by massive pine trees. Ryan smiled. "This is it." The clearing looked untouched. Soft grass, a fallen tree near the center, and an old stone fire pit someone must have built years ago. Perfect campsite. We dropped our packs and started setting up the tents. The forest stayed quiet the whole time, even as night slowly crept through the trees. Once the fire was going, things felt better. Firelight always makes the dark feel less threatening. We cooked dinner, joked around, told stories. Eventually, the tension faded. Maybe the silence wasn't anything strange, just a quiet part of the forest. Around midnight, we crawled into our tents. Ryan and Jordan shared one. Lucas and I shared the other. The fire burned low as we drifted off to sleep. For a while, everything was peaceful. Then I woke up. Not suddenly, just slowly, like something had nudged me awake. At first, I thought it was the fire crackling outside, but then I realized something else was happening. Someone was walking around the campsite. Soft footsteps. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. Pause. I listened carefully. The footsteps moved slowly around the fire pit. Jordan stirred beside me. "You hear that?" he whispered. "Yeah." We waited. The footsteps kept circling, slow, careful, like someone pacing the edge of the campsite. "Probably another hiker," Jordan muttered. "Maybe, but why would they be walking around our camp in the middle of the night? And why weren't they saying anything?" The footsteps stopped near Ryan's tent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Ryan's voice called out quietly, "Guys?" But Ryan was inside the tent, sleeping. Jordan and I froze. Outside, Ryan's voice spoke again. "Hello?" Lucas suddenly unzipped their tent. "What?" The footsteps stopped instantly. Complete silence returned. Lucas stepped outside. "Did one of you say something?" Jordan and I crawled out of our tent. "No," I said. Lucas frowned. "I swear I heard Ryan talking." Ryan poked his head out of the tent. "I was asleep." We all looked around the clearing. Nothing moved beyond the firelight, just endless trees and darkness. Eventually, we convinced ourselves it was nothing. Maybe an echo, maybe someone passing by deeper in the woods. We went back to sleep. But the next night, it happened again. The same footsteps, walking slowly around the campsite. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. But this time, the footsteps didn't stay outside the firelight. They stepped into it. Jordan saw it first, a tall shape standing near the trees, perfectly still, watching us. We couldn't see its face clearly, just the outline of something thin and tall. Too tall. "Hey!" Ryan shouted. The shape didn't move. It just stood there, silent, watching. Then it slowly stepped back into the darkness. We chased after it, but the moment we reached the trees, it was gone. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing. The next morning, we decided to leave. None of us said it out loud, but we all felt it. Something about that forest wasn't right. We packed quickly and started back down the trail. Except, the trail looked different. The trees were thicker, the path narrower. Ryan checked the map. "This isn't the way we came." We tried another direction. Same result. Every trail led back to the same clearing, every time, over and over. By the third attempt, panic started creeping in. "We're going in circles," Jordan said. Lucas pointed toward the trees. "Guys, look." Footprints surrounded the clearing, old ones, new ones, all circling the campsite like someone or something had been walking the same path around the fire pit for years. Ryan slowly whispered something none of us wanted to hear. "These aren't just footprints." He pointed at one. It matched his boot exactly. Another matched mine. Another matched Jordan's. The forest went silent again. And then, footsteps began circling the clearing. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. But this time, they weren't ours. And when we looked toward the trees, we saw them. 4 figures stepping slowly into the firelight, each one wearing our faces, standing exactly where we had stood the night before, watching us, learning us, waiting for us to leave. Because that's when the truth finally hit me. The trail wasn't leading us in circles. The forest was. And every time someone camps in that clearing, the forest keeps a copy of them, walking the trail forever, waiting for the next hikers to arrive. And somewhere deep in those woods, new footsteps are already walking towards that clearing, following a trail that looks perfectly normal, until it's too late to leave.